The Some of you have asked about happy hour. The happy hour is going to be moved to a later date. With it being a holiday weekend, a lot of people Friday, they want to get, got plans to go to the lake out of town. And so whenever we are faced with that potential conflict, we always like to bump it down. So we've got a tentative date, but I just want to make for absolute sure before we announce that. But we'll let you know. So there's just some scheduling stuff there for you to be aware of. And I want to mention something that I talked about yesterday as well. That is two events taking place today. It is it's the same event, two different locations, two different times. Road to Zero Amendment 5 Town Hall. There is slated to be one at noon today at the Golden Corral in Branson on Shepherd of the Hills Expressway. Representative Bishop Davidson, a sponsor of Amendment 5, along with Rep. Brian Setz and Senator Brad Hudson. Americans for Prosperity Missouri will be there as well. And then there will be a Road to Zero Amendment 5 Town Hall in Republic this evening at Flat Creek on 60. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Again, Americans for Prosperity Missouri will be there, as will Representative Bishop Davis and Senator Curtis Trent. So if this is something I recommend for people that are traditionally conservative or believe that we are overtaxed, but you've heard a lot of worrisome things about this, I definitely recommend that you attend. This really, truly is educational. This isn't a rally. Sometimes you'll have a rally for an event that is upcoming, that's going to have a vote to show support for it. That's not what this is. This is informational. So if you are skeptical, have questions, definitely recommend that you make a point to attend one of these. Now, that being said, we have Bishop Davidson scheduled to be in here in the 7 o'clock hour. Now, he did text me potentially to move that into the 8 o'clock hour, so that is still up in the air. But one of the 2 hours, he will be here, just waiting to get confirmation back on which of those two times. He had asked if he could move to 8, and I said, yeah, we promoted it on social media for 7, so it's kind of your call, on that, given that we have promoted it on social media, and I'm just waiting to hear back. But if whatever hour you're listening, you miss it, we'll have it up in podcast form. It is beginning to appear as if our good friends over in Europe that run the media, that run Europe, the elites of Europe, are beginning to get just a little bit nervous that this anti-American sentiment that they have assisted in carefully crafting might be breaking apart just a bit because of their own citizens traveling to the United States, as you are, I'm sure, very well aware, and have just totally, it is grassroots from the sense that these are completely unrelated individuals other than they are all here from foreign countries, largely Europe, in order to attend the World Cup, and they're all having the same experience, and that is America's awesome. We've been lied to by media. We apologize for thinking all these horrible things about you. Your culture is awesome. The amount of opportunities and diversity you have is unbelievable. The people are incredible. Housing, that's one of the things that it just blows the minds of these Europeans is housing availability and the size of the homes that are available to middle-class people. Just all of the options that we have at our fingertips here, and just the culture of this country. That's the thing that I think is probably one of the more significant notations, because it's our culture that we're told internally by the left that we're supposed to be so ashamed of. And we should be more like Europe. Yet all these Europeans are coming here like, oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. I've noticed a story here and a story there starting to pop up that are through the lens, like trying to refocus about how bad America is coming out of Europe. And to me, this is a sign that they're legitimately potentially getting worried. It's easy to dismiss it as, well, what do they care? They're elitist. People complain. Elites, by definition, they don't care what the little people think. But some of these European nations are already in, somewhat of a balance, particularly as increasingly we learn more and more about European governments covering up, immigrant rapes of native girls. That report recently coming out that 250,000 girls cover up of rape of 250,000 girls in England or the UK, of which 95% were Muslims, 85% of which came specifically from Pakistan. This is a cover-up. And other areas of frustration that citizens have in Europe, and oftentimes that frustration is shrugged off as, well, what are you going to do? That's just the way life is. And then they come over here to America and they're like, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be as crappy as it is back in my home country. And the fact that in their country, coupled with left-wing media out of the U.S., and that includes entertainment media, they realize they've been lied to about America, and then that starts to make you suspicious. You start thinking, why do they lie about? Why is it? And they start to put two and two together. And it's almost, again, toxic relationship scenario in which a person is in a toxic relationship and they're convinced it doesn't get any better than that. They just don't realize it. They don't realize that they can be in a relationship where they're treated well, they're treated as an equal, they're respected. They think this is just the way it is, and this is how relationships are. And then they start to talk to their friends, and then they're around their friends and their friends who are in a relationship. I'm like, well, wait a minute here. Man, he sure treats her nice. This isn't something I'm used to. Wait a minute. What do you mean he cares about your thoughts? What do you mean he comes home at the end of the day and asks what it is he can do to help you? That's a thing? And it begins to form some cracks in the foundation of that lock that the toxic offender has on that individual that is the victim of that toxicity. And I think that some of the elites in Europe are worried that this revelation is going to potentially feed some unrest that's already there, but is perhaps suppressed because of that sense, well, what can you do about it? And then these people come here to America and they're like, apparently a lot, because Americans aren't having to put up with a lot of this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, we certainly have our problems, particularly in the heavily blue states, but so many of these Europeans are traveling through the non-blue areas in order to get to the blue areas, and that's where they're finding the diners. That's where they're talking to people in neighborhoods as they walk the streets, or they go to the local fire station just to say hey, or they hit a Buc-ee's where you have people traveling through, which usually aren't blue city people. Blue city people are pretty locked in, don't have their own transportation. Oftentimes it's more of the red state people that like to do the traveling with family. And so they're seeing that part of America and realizing that just the mindset is one that they like, that feels good, that patriotism. And I think that is beginning to give some concern to the elites in Europe. I'll give you a couple examples as we continue on this morning. First, our latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93, heat index values as high as 101. Tonight clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 93.
All right, I did get confirmation. We are going to be moving Bishop Davidson to the 8 o'clock hour. As opposed to the previously scheduled 7 o'clock hour to go over some of the Amendment 5 stuff. If you have any Amendment 5 questions, text them into the Pyramid Roofing Company. Text line 447-KSGF. Also, quick reminder that even though firework displays have really kicked off on, I think, Friday, Republic being one of the, if not the first, to really kick that off, still a lot of Independence Day celebrations to come. Compiled list of where you can see fireworks in the 417, thanks to R&R Fireworks in Springfield. Just head over to ksgf.com for that info. Right. It has become unavoidable. Most of you have seen it. Even the media's been forced to coverage. Europeans and not just Europeans, but from countries all over the world coming to the U.S. and how much they love it. It's awesome. They love the patriotism. They love restaurants. The idea of free refills. Or have you seen the one? There's a guy, I think he was from Japan, blown away that he had gone to, maybe it was a Texas Roadhouse or somewhere where they bring you bread ahead of time. Not uncommon for a restaurant, breadsticks, chips and salsa. And like, I didn't order this. And they're like, oh no, and he's like, I didn't even order food yet. And they're bringing me food that they're not charging me for.
I didn't see that one, but
yes.
I did see a guy from France who had went to a Mexican restaurant. And he's like, what do? I've filled up on those chips and salsa. I'm not even hungry anymore.
That's an American problem. Well, what you do is you push through it. That's what you learn to do.
There's this thing called a to-go box.
Yeah. But, and I've even seen a couple of postings that reference the tipping. And because so tipping is something that is, quote, uniquely American. I mean, we're not the only country that does it, but most countries don't do it. And in fact, some countries kind of see it as insulting, apparently. And that's a thing that has always been considered to be a bit off-putting, if you will, or so we're told anyhow, by people from other countries regarding the U.S. And I've seen a number of these organic videos in which the experience that foreigners have had in our restaurants were so above and beyond what they're accustomed to, just in terms of even friendliness and attentiveness, that they're like, I get this tipping thing now. I want to tip. There was one guy, I forget what country he's from. He was English speaking. And he's like, I get it now. I wanted to tip. This is such an experience. It's not just somebody asking me what I want and then bringing me my food. and there have been numerous videos along these lines, and it's just, again, one of these awakenings, if you will, that has occurred. Well, lo and behold, there was a video piece on the BBC interviewing here in Los Angeles, I think it was Los Angeles, that they found it was either 3 or 4 individuals from foreign countries to ask them how they felt about tipping. And guess what? All these hand-picked individuals that the BBC decided, just randomly found, guess how they all felt about it? They did not like it. Now, they didn't really rail on it. One talked to, I think he was from Australia, and he's like, well, you come in and you kind of think this is going to be the price, and then it's more than that. One gal, she's like, yeah, in Japan, we don't do that. You could tell they weren't used to it. They didn't care for it. But I thought that's very interesting that here the BBC, the government-run media outlet, while some of their very own citizens are coming to the United States and declaring that they've been wrong about what a great, free, awesome, diverse country this is. And when it comes to, for example, restaurants, how much better the service is, how much better the food options are. I mean, they're just almost overboard, gushing about how wonderful it is. And some talking about the tipping and how not only do they not get it, but they want to, they feel compelled because of the graciousness and kindness and attentiveness of service people at the restaurants they've gone to. And here comes the BBC. See, they got to run their counter programming because they can't have people back home hearing all these wonderful things. I mean, this is one of the cultural, and it isn't that they are concerned there is suddenly going to be some sort of demand to allow tipping in the UK. It's just the idea that maybe something America does that's different isn't not only bad, but there's a point to it. That one of the areas that has been seen culturally as a defining deficit of America, and that is this tipping culture, because the evil corporations don't want to pay the fair share, suddenly people that experience it are going, oh, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the way we've been told this is. I know it seems like a little thing, but you got to think about it. You got to understand this. Every story that's written, now, there's 2 types of stories. There's the story that's the obvious story, right? Something happened. We got to go cover that story. Then there's the story that exists because the people who do the story decided, let's do a story on this. So there was a deliberate decision that was made to go to the United States of America, go to Los Angeles, find some individuals that are foreigners visiting and have them talk about tipping. And again, lo and behold, every single individual they found was opposed to it or didn't like it. They just, it was not their thing. It was a deliberate decision. Why? Why was that decision made? See, that's the point of interest here. It was made to counter what their own people are posting on social media about. It's to sort of put us back in check. Because you can imagine they're over there just thinking to themselves, will you people shut up? Yeah, here they're having to view and see news stories about their citizens leaving their country, visiting a place that's supposed to be worse than home, and all they're doing is talking about how awesome it is. I suspect we're going to see more stories like this. Now, in the same vein, Paris Deputy Mayor Aubrey Pulver released a lengthy statement blaming the United States for the deadly heat wave over France this past week. Now, there's a reason this story exists. One of the bragging points that these foreigners who come here to the U.S. and are sort of bragging on the U.S. or talking about the ways that it's so much more amazing than back home is air conditioning. We're not talking about countries like Chad or Kenya. We're talking about our European allies. Only 3% of households have air conditioning in the UK. Throughout all of Europe, 20%. And they have deadly heat waves that result in thousands of people unnecessarily dying because they shame them into virtue signaling no air conditioning. Look at me saving the planet. And if that means, it's usually elderly people whose bodies are not able to take the heat as a young, strong person, and so that's just a sacrifice that has to be made for the planet. Now, I've got to take a break because I want to expand on this. It is more than it seems. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. All right, we're going to get traffic here, some of your text messages, and then continue on this discussion about the elites in Europe portraying some concern about all of these Europeans revealing the truth about America and suddenly popping up with these stories and these declarations about how bad America is, tipping's awful, and this is all to counter what is coming out with all of this social media stuff. First, Brookline Door Works. You have a garage. You have a bay door. You have a security gate. These are, I don't know that anyone has any of these things that aren't mechanically driven at this point. Once upon a time, you had a garage door, you had to physically open it yourself. That's just not a thing any longer, unless, of course, you just have a broken spring, you haven't want to fix it. But Brookline Doorworks, there you go, folks, for this. Now, of course, they do top-of-the-line garage doors and insulation. They do all of those things as well. But the thing that most of us is going to need before we do that in life is a repair. It's because things are a little squeaky, or it looks like my garage door is having a hard time pulling that garage door up, or the opener is having a difficult time. If you're hearing noises and creaks and pops and everything, you probably need to have a visit. In fact, I have an annual visit. That's what I do. That's what I've always done since I had a new garage door installed, just to make sure it's running as efficiently as possible and to diminish the likelihood something catastrophic is going to happen with it. By the way, the WD-40 thing, do not do that. That is not a lubricant. That is not something, it makes some of the sounds go away, but you could actually be doing more harm than good. And the technicians at Brookline Doorworks can explain all that to you. But point is, make them your contact when it comes to this stuff. And by the way, 24/7, they have someone on call. Emergencies, you name it, 2 o'clock Sunday morning, you call, they're going to be there. BrooklineDoorworks.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93 and heat index values as high as 101. Tonight clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93.
The upcoming Great Escape 2027 is open for business, sponsored by HVAC Masters. You want to get yourself reserved, then go to KSGF.com. We've got all the information there, contact info. It is going to be next spring, April 24th through May 1st. It's a long one. It's a full week. It is Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, the Riu Palace, Macau, and the all-inclusive nature covers the flight, covers taxes, covers tipping. Just under $2,000 for a junior suite. If you want to swim up, I think it's about $2,400, somewhere around there. And like I said, that covers absolutely everything.
Did you get an update from Cam?
No, I haven't talked to her. I need to send her a message.
I'll send her an email.
Yeah, and just kind of see where we are with it. Because sometimes I think, there must be a trickle at this point. Usually right out of the gate, boom, 50% plus, gets sold out. And then it's a slow trickle, and I'll think that's happening, and then she'll say, oh, no, there's only one slot left. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So I doubt that is the case yet, though I suspect that we are getting down there as we usually do after a full week of promoting it and it being open to the public. Details, KSGF.com. Talking about what I believe is the European elites beginning to become a little concerned about all of this pro-America stuff coming from their own citizens. And it is because it is revealing the truth after a very long-term, deliberately crafted misrepresentation about what America actually is from the elites here in the United States and the elites over in Europe as well. And restaurants are a big one. The tipping culture is a thing that and it's odd, it's left-wing Americans that love to trash on tipping and say we shouldn't have tipping. Now, if you talk to actual servers, they're like, no. I don't think some people understand how much a server can make, and you don't have to be in a big city. If you are good, you can make very, very, very good money. And people in that industry know that, which is why they love the tipping. But as usual, people on the left are experts in other people's life experiences. And so it's people on the left, usually who have never been a server in their life, or if they haven't been a server in which they actually rely on it for an income. And so they know better. These foreigners are coming here and, among other things, praising restaurants, and a lot of them talking about how, hey, they understand the tipping now. They want to tip because the experience is above and beyond anything they're accustomed to. So lo and behold, the BBC has a piece about it's a video piece, and they interview some foreigners visiting the U.S. who talk about how they don't like tipping. One of the other revelations has been the vastness of air conditioning throughout the country. How prevalent, actually that's a better term, the prevalence of air conditioning in the United States. It isn't just the air conditioning. It's if you've seen some of these videos, some of them will reference, oh my gosh, it's air conditioned. It isn't that they've never experienced air conditioning. It's that it is so limited there because they shame people into believing they're destroying the planet, and so they have to live in the sweltering heat. Which is why only 3% of households in the UK have air conditioning, and only about 20% of all of Europe has air conditioning, and it's generally the elites, by the way. There was a story yesterday how the European Commission, because of a heat wave and emergency, instead of saying everyone should have access to air conditioning, they shut it down. And this story noted that the building that houses the European Commission, the top floors that house the elites, still had air conditioning. It was the peon workers below floor 8 that had to work in the sweltering heat. And that's the way it always works with government-centered cultures, whether it's socialism or fascism or Marxism or Nazism or communism. The elites who are in charge get the perks and the benefits. And that's the mindset that Europeans have been accustomed to. Well, they come here to the United States, and even the poorest people in some parts of the country have window units. They go to restaurants, air conditioning. They go into a restroom, air conditioning. They go into a gas station, a petrol station, air conditioning. They go to a hotel, air conditioning. In the stadiums, their minds are blown by the fact that these indoor stadiums are air conditioned. They just cannot wrap their minds around it because they didn't believe that was a thing that was possible. What's significant about it isn't the air conditioning itself, it's the new knowledge that Europeans have that, wait a minute, we can have air conditioning for everyone. We don't have to lose our grandparents to heat waves as we do every single year unnecessarily. They see how unnecessary that's been. And given that a lot of them are walking around parts of the country with clean air, clean water, you see them out walking in the streets, they just see how clean everything is in some of these areas. And this is the opposite of what they've been told. Like, we have to sacrifice our weak and our elderly in the name of preventing our cities from being polluted. This is all a bit potentially dangerous for European elites. Hence, Paris Deputy Mayor Aubrey Pulver released a lengthy statement blaming the U.S. for the deadly heat wave over France this past week. She wrote on Instagram Friday, "Dear American journalist and social media influencer, for days some of you have been criticizing and making fun of Paris because the city does not have AC in every room. OMG, this is so rich. As the second largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, you bear a significant amount of responsibility for global warming. And the consequences we and France are experiencing in your cities, 90% air conditioned, are not unrelated to this in Paris. We're taking responsibility." Now, I guarantee you the Paris deputy mayor isn't. She wants air conditioning. She gets air conditioning. That's how it works in countries with centralized government, in countries in which they view your rights as something that they bestow upon you, so they get to choose these things. So this is to push back against it's I don't think they expected this. I don't think that they expected their citizens to come to the U.S. and then use their platforms, their TikToks, their Instagram accounts, their social media presence and influence to tell the world, hey, what they've been telling us isn't true about this country. It's awesome. This is a wonderful place. It isn't a hellhole. And all of these things that we've been told we can't have as human beings that only belong to the elite, that doesn't have to be. And that's the catch of it. Because so many of these people in Europe, these citizens, they recognize that the things that they're told are bad. They understand that, but the elites have them. And so in their mind, they have become accustomed to accepting that, well, the elites just need certain things that we can't have because they're in charge and they're very important people. And they're for the very first time experiencing a country in which it doesn't work that way. You don't have to be part of the privileged class to enjoy something like air conditioning. You can be any schmuck and walk into any big box store and just grab one and take it home and plug it into the wall without some sort of government permit, without having to go through some 6 or 8 month long process and pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to the government only to be rejected in an hour's time. You can go from no air conditioning to drive to a big box store, grab a unit, and get it home and have it functioning. This toxic relationship that the elites of Europe have had with their citizens, and it's worked pretty well for them, no matter how often they fail. And it's like blue cities in the United States. Let's not be naive here. I mean, but imagine your entire country functioning like a Los Angeles. Imagine your entire country functioning like a Baltimore or a Chicago. That's one of the vast differences between having a republic with 50 different states that are to a degree autonomous from one another. So you can have such vast differences between a California versus a Florida. Well, it doesn't really work that way in France. It doesn't really work that way in Britain. And it's worked out quite well for those governments. The people know their place. They are convinced that it really doesn't get any better than that. And in fact, they are fed propaganda that they are actually much better off than the rest of the world, including the United States, which they're just, I mean, it's a miserable place over there. You don't even want to go there. It's horrible. It's awful. You're going to go there to watch the World Cup. ICE is going to detain you. People are rude. They're arrogant. They're going to treat you like trash. That's what they've all been told. And I love the fact that the elites are beginning to try to counter-program, if you will. They are beginning to, try and balance out all of what actual people are saying with narratives that conflict with it, because that tells us that they're worried. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that this means some sort of social revolution is going to occur in these European nations, but you never know. Traffic update on Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing text line. How many Blue City Americans would have a similar reaction when traveling through red states instead of flying over all the time? And another noting, you're spot on about Europeans seeing what America is really like for many of us, but the same could be said for a lot of Americans who haven't traveled outside of the blue cities. Same point being made. Two real-life examples. One, a guy that I had worked for, and he was, he was born and raised in Milwaukee. And he was what he called himself a Bill Clinton Democrat. I don't know what he would be today. This was 20 years ago. And we were talking about it was the issue of racism. I don't even know if we were talking about it. I don't remember the purpose of the following story he shared, but he was telling me that he had decided to take his two boys to, I think it was Florida. I don't know if it was Disney World or what, but they were going to go to Florida. And they had never been out really outside of in terms of actual experiences outside of the Milwaukee area. And he told me that they had stopped in, it was Mississippi or Louisiana, somewhere to the south, where in his mind, as a lefty from a blue city, racism was abound. In his mind, he figured that he'd walk in and to any sort of restaurant and there'd be people wearing Klan outfits. He said he walked into an Applebee's, and as he sat there with his two boys, he looked around and noticed that there was virtually no tables that did not have a mix of white people and black people together. And that really shattered his worldview. Because he said you never would see, not to that degree, in a Democrat-run city like Milwaukee, very segregated. And he realized what he had been told about the South, the imagery that had been created by the left in his mind of what it's like to be black in the South, it was a total, complete lie. Second story. True. Even further back from that incident or the story being told to me, an individual has become a lifelong friend of mine, moved to the Bible Belt from San Francisco. And as a homosexual, he was warned by his liberal Democrat friends, of which he was one, the liberal Democrat, you do not want to go to the Bible Belt. You better keep your personal life quiet. You better not tell anyone. You better pretend as if you like women, because that's the Bible Belt. They gay bash people there. You will be attacked. It didn't take him long before, I think I was the first friend that he had made in the Bible Belt, that he told me that he was gay, and he was shocked at how little people cared about that. And how it was actually refreshing. And that he had been told that he was supposed to be afraid. And he realized that that's not at all, that there might be many people who don't necessarily agree with his personal choices, but they're like, all right, that's fine. That's your thing, not mine. He also would realize he wasn't actually a liberal Democrat. He was just told that he had to be one because he was gay. And that Republicans hated gay people, and that the Bible Belt hated gay. And so here is just another example of how the left lies about people that are different from them in order to scare people into isolating themselves from the rest of the world. I know I sound like a broken record making the point about it being a toxic relationship, but everything about the relationship between the elites, the left leadership, and the people who support and follow them is a toxic relationship. It is built on fear. It is built on lies. It is built on isolating them away from people that, that they don't want them to be around. It is a relationship in which they create a false sense of what is actually out there for their targeted victim, making their victim feel as if their only protection in life is to stay with this individual, is to stay with this political party, because everyone's out to get them. That's a toxic relationship. And to the point, and it's a great point, that it should be a revelation to us, and that as we see these Europeans and they're like, whoa, we had no idea, that there are a lot of people in blue states or blue cities in particular, that they have just as much of a false idea about parts of America as Europeans do, because they too have been lied to. And they've been isolated away. They have been encouraged not to interact with people who have diverse perspectives than they do. Again, toxic relationship. So yeah, no, it's a very astute observation. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Let's see. This is another fantastic text coming in. After seeing average fans from other countries make their social media postings about how great America is, I wonder why elites want to control the internet. We've seen a number of foreign countries recently, and the UK being one of them, that have either put forth efforts or have banned social media for younger people. And they present it through the lens of all of the universally accepted destructive things that are on the internet. But it does kind of make you wonder, doesn't it? Is that really their full motivation? Or is it to control information? When you really recognize what's going on, and it's always been this way, you control information, you can control people. This is why the left is always such a big supporter of censorship. Hence, a story that we're going to talk about in the next hour is Citizen Vigilante, the film about Muslim atrocities that's opening eyes, terrifying globalists, and have been banned in countries like Germany. It will come as no surprise that the reviews coming from the elite critics is bashing this, it's panning it, it is describing it as xenophobic, doing everything they can to suppress it, to prevent people from watching the film. After Germany essentially banned it, and I'll explain how they did that. Well, they wouldn't, the government wouldn't give it a rating, which meant it could not be shown or sold. So that's how they banned it from being shown. Elon Musk put it on X for free. So we'll talk about that in the upcoming hour. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Do you know Emily Johnson? Well, if you don't, you need to. Even if you're not looking currently to buy a new home, sell a new home, there's a good chance one day you will, or you will know someone that will. Maybe somebody moving to the area, they're not familiar with the area, and you really want to give them a fantastic gift, and that is making that experience as easy as possible. Emily is so much more than simply showing you houses that fit your criteria. She has, because of her expertise and her, being from the area and doing this for a very long time as a passion, she has a tremendous amount of connections which are extremely helpful. So, for example, if you are looking to sell your home and the potential buyers have a few fixes that they require in order for the sale to go through, maybe a foundational repair or something to do with the crawl space, and you're like, well, I don't know who's good. I mean, she knows all of that. She knows the people. She has the relationships. And she knows who not only does a good job, but isn't going to take advantage of the fact that you have to have this done in order to sell your home. They're going to be good. They're going to be honest. They're going to be ethical. So you get a whole package that you so oftentimes do not get when it comes to buying and selling home. And she recommends, as do I, interview a few people. This is a big deal. You're essentially hiring someone in order to make one of the biggest financial decisions of your life. So it doesn't hurt to talk to more than one person. I just make sure one of those people is Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. The top of the hour news noted estimates of people that are missing and or they've died in this earthquake in Venezuela, and internationally this is recognized as a horrific disaster. All hands on deck. Volunteers from all over the world, obviously including the United States, and that includes financial support. Everyone recognizes, this is a horrific disaster. And what is it that one of the immediate goals in the first 24, 48 hours was? It was to prevent as many potential deaths from occurring due to the earthquake that could potentially occur. So obviously, there are a number of people that just immediately lost their lives because they were in buildings that collapsed. But we recognize that sometimes there are pockets within the buildings, and so rescue teams go in, and we these great heartwarming stories. I think it was yesterday, a small child and the child's mother was pulled from the rubble alive, and these are the things for a period of time you really rush in order to do to save as many lives as possible. And the numbers are considered catastrophic, somewhere around 1,700. And then I think back to the story we were talking about previously and how, according to the World Health Organization, as of this past Sunday, more than 1,300 people unnecessarily died in Europe during the week prior because they didn't have air conditioning. Excessive heat. And that is just treated as normal. Well, it's what you got to do to save the planet. That's in a week's time. This has partially gotten a lot of attention because someone looked at the statistics and noted, and what's culturally, Europe loves to rail on the United States because of gun deaths. Excessive deaths, in other words, deaths that would not have occurred if it weren't for people suffering in excessive heat due to lack of air conditioning. Those deaths exceed gun deaths in America. Back in, 2024, more than 62,700 Europeans died of heat-related causes. It's over 67,000. 80% of Europeans don't have air conditioning. And that's by government choice. That's cultural choice. It may not be choice of the individual citizen. That's the problem with having a society that is not a republic like the United States, but one instead where government gets to decide what you do, what comforts you have, what life-saving measures you have, what climate control you have. They get to decide that for you. They choose what your, quote, right is. But you think about that. Think about the difference in approach in coverage of an earthquake in Venezuela, in which we talk about the numbers being 15, 16, 1,700 individuals that lose their lives, and how other people risk their lives in order to try to minimize that number. We know what can minimize the 40, 50, 60,000 deaths in Europe. Let people have air conditioning. Nope, that's not an option. In fact, in their minds and the brainwashing that they do of supporters of theirs is to claim it's not their fault people are dying of heat-related issues with the lack of air conditioning. It's those of us here in America who have air conditioning that is causing it. Which, even if you look at their own numbers, you know how ridiculous that is? What do they say? That, and of course, the numbers are generally based off of so-called models, but they make these claims that, well, the temperature is going to go up 0.8 degrees or 1.3. Oh, that's the difference between no heat-related deaths and 67,000 heat-related deaths. 1 minute I'm fine, but the temperature goes up 2 or 3 degrees, and suddenly I'm having a heat stroke. As is tens of thousands of other people. That's not how it works. This is one of those situations in which the cure is worse than the disease. And of course, it's not based in any reality anyhow, but the elites, in order to control people, claim the cure for the disease of global warming is to not have air conditioning, and that's what kills tens of thousands of people. Their own people. Lives that could be saved. Nope. Of course, you know what category that the 20% of Europeans or the 3% of British people who have air conditioning, we know what category they fall in. They're elites. You think Downing Street sweats it out during these heat waves? Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93, heat index values as high as 101. Tonight, clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And taking a look at Thursday, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93.
All right, we are going to get traffic, and then before we get to this citizen vigilante story that I want to talk about, I think it's going to become a much bigger cultural hot point than it already is. It's beginning to fester under the surface. Talking about the Venezuelan earthquake, and the media has found a way to blame Donald Trump for some of these deaths. Of course they have. How's this headline from NPR? Which, as you know, based off of congressional testimony, among other venues, they have declared that they are perfectly, completely unbiased, straightforward. Venezuelans deported from the U.S. were killed hours later in powerful quakes. Now, I wonder what angle they're going for here. Clearly Donald Trump's fault. Look at this. People are dying because of deportation. NPR reporting the last time Horalis Montez saw her best friend, Angelo Mejia Melendez, was 4 years ago at a goodbye party before he left for the U.S. We were like, "You're stupid for leaving us," she joked. Last week, she got word he was coming home unexpectedly as a deportee. Mejia Melendez was one of 146 Venezuelan nationals who landed in Caracas after being deported from the U.S. on Wednesday. Passengers on that plane, which included women and children, were being processed in a guarded hotel when powerful twin quakes struck. According to family members, the buildings, they were pancaked. The family of Mejia Melendez had planned to celebrate with him once back home. Instead, they had to spend days searching hospitals and morgues. Ultimately, they identified his body by a distinct pizza tattoo on his arm. "We grew up together," Montez says. "It's so hard." Now, of course, the human stories are sad. But it's clear what the agenda is here. Donald Trump is responsible for hundreds of these deaths because these people who are in the country illegally were then legally deported. Now, of course, none of this is the responsibility of a socialist government that presided over or responsible for horrific infrastructure. None of these people who lost their lives in buildings that collapsed, none of those lives lost were the responsibility of, be it work standards or construction standards that are not equipped in order to accommodate earthquakes. No. This is all Donald Trump's fault because he's enforcing our border laws. As in case you didn't notice, as President of the United States, it's one of the things you're kind of supposed to do. Can you imagine the mindset and the derangement of a human being when an earthquake like this occurs? And of course, you and I, as normal people, we see a socialist country. To what degree it's still socialist, but I mean, this was an impoverished country. This is a country that was so poorly managed, and the people are so oppressed. Hundreds of thousands of people fled, many to the United States of America. And so when we see the results of an earthquake and rubble everywhere, we don't find that shocking. We don't find that shocking because that is what we expect to see in countries that have third world standards. Which is a shame because Venezuela, once upon a time, was a huge draw and one of the most successful, wealthiest nations in South America. But decades of socialist rule, of course, degraded that. So we see it. We recognize that that's pretty consistent, unfortunately, with the sort of building standards that occur in countries like Venezuela. But then there are minds like those at NPR that immediately begin figuring out, how can we trace this to Donald Trump? Do you know how sick you have to be? These people, there's something severely wrong. This is a mental illness. What once upon a time was a joke to highlight the absurdity of the left, and that is there's nothing that isn't Donald Trump's fault, has become standard practice for these people. Their level of mental illness is to the degree that they cannot help themselves. And something that is as tragic as hundreds into thousands of people losing their lives in horrible ways. I don't know about you. I know this may be macabre, but the idea of being trapped, I think about that when I see earthquakes in countries that don't have the same sort of standards we do and technology we do when it comes to building infrastructure. And you think about just, people being trapped in that stuff, and it's just unimaginable to me. It's so horrific. And then there are people that are like, let's get this back to Donald Trump. That's what let's use this opportunity for that. Or even worse, it isn't deliberate. It's just automatic. It's not even a conscious choice. They're so mentally ill. It is their default go-to. Which does make one wonder, when Trump is gone, what will their default be? I mean, I suppose it's whomever the next Republican is, be it J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, because we know that we will find the person worse than Donald Trump, because it'll be whomever succeeds him as a Republican anyhow. All right, coming up, I want to talk about this Citizen Vigilante, a film about Muslim atrocities that it's gaining a lot of popularity because it's speaking to the truth. And this is a massive divide between the elites and normal people, which is why countries like Germany are banning it. Anytime the elites try to ban something, that gives you great insight into what's going on. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, the Pyramid Roofing Company. When we go from lots of rain to very hot temperatures, that's when older roofs like to fail, and sometimes you don't see it or you don't catch it until that next storm hits. If you have an older roof and you just want to check up on your roof, I highly recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. The Pyramid team offers roof inspections free of charge, and you don't get a sales pitch with it. They'll shoot you straight on the work that needs to be done, and then they'll work with you through that entire insurance process. They'll even meet with your adjuster to make sure that everything gets covered. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home or to your business, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There is this movie that is getting increased attention called Citizen Vigilante, and it's about Muslim atrocities. And the elites are downplaying it. They are criticizing it as being xenophobic. And they are, when possible, banning it. Elon Musk made it free on X for people to watch. And it's what I guess one would call historical fiction, and it is based around the historical reality and even just current day reality of Muslim men that at a disproportionately high rate rape underage white girls. These are statistics. And PJ Media has just a bit of a snapshot within a window of time that is relevant to the release of this film and why it is that this film is something that's resonating with people. And they note a timeline of crimes and victories that we've seen in the past month regarding this issue. And what is the problem here? It's almost a conspiracy of sorts in which you have the rapes and the abuse that take place, the atrocities, the human rights violations, and then the elites, usually white elites, that cover it up. June 1st, Vikram Digwa is convicted in the UK of killing 18-year-old Henry Nowak for, quote, being racist. Police video shows the cops handcuffing Nowak, who was bleeding out, believing Digwa's story of bigotry. Before launching an investigation, Digwa was never cuffed. His brother and mother helped to deceive the cops and hide the murder weapon. Neither is charged. And you may have seen that this resulted in some degree of citizen outrage in the UK, because here's just a guy, and he was bleeding to death, telling police I was stabbed, and they were like, I don't think so. And he died. Meanwhile, the person who stabbed him, the murderer, cried racism, and so they defaulted to believing him. June 8th, a bundle of diversity attempts to behead a special needs man in Ireland. The attack, caught on video, riots erupt in Belfast. Other cities quickly join them. Attacks by Muslim invaders continue, including a 17-year-old girl who is stabbed in the neck, leaving the police befuddled as to the motive. They can never quite figure out the motive. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer recently clown-slapped in national elections, decided the problem isn't Islam, but rather social media, which is bringing the inconvenient news to everyone. He decided the answer is to ban British kids under 16 from social media apps. June 16th, the UK rape gang inquiry is released, revealing that as many as 250,000 British girls and women, almost all of them white, have been raped by mostly Pakistani Muslims with near impunity. One of the authors noting that 95% of the attackers are Muslim, with 84% being Pakistani. June 19th, a man of unreleased origin throws a 3-year-old child into a crocodile enclosure. He's deemed too mentally unfit for an investigation and is quickly released from jail. We still don't know if the over-the-top mentally ill attacker is an asylum seeker. Later that day, the film Citizen Vigilante, a movie about an American in Europe who goes to war against Muslim savagery and those who allow it, is released in U.S. theaters. Few pay attention. The movie, written and directed by German filmmaker Uwe Boll, is an inconvenient truth that the globalists don't want their people to see: an accurate portrayal of Muslim atrocities against white Europeans, and worse, with a hopeful ending. They note there's no greater promotion for art than banning it, and Germany did just that. Germany refusing to grant the movie an age rating, thereby preventing its theatrical release. That's when Elon Musk stepped in. Musk, whom some of the 21st century's most brilliant political pundits believe saved free speech and was instrumental in President Trump's election victory, posted the film on Twitter/X for free over the weekend. At the time of this publication, Twitter had exploded, or X, over Citizen Vigilante. It was viewed at least 15.5 million times in the first 48 hours it was released. It goes on to note a couple of other incidents of criminal activity in the same vein. Part of the reason that this is resonating with people, particularly in Europe, isn't simply because it is an acknowledgement of culturally what has been going on, but because it portrays an individual that is standing up for the victims when seemingly those people do not exist. I want to take a traffic update, just expand on this just a bit. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Field's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today it'll be sunny with a high near 93 and heat index values as high as 101. Tonight clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 93.
This film that is getting a lot of attention, and I think the elites are in this uncomfortable position of making too much noise about it and then bringing attention to it when they don't want to. And it's Citizen Vigilante. It's about Muslim atrocities. Germany refused to give it a rating, which meant, because they don't have a free society there, that it was illegal to show it. You have the standard elites, the reviewers that are all criticizing this, that it's Islamophobic, it's xenophobic. It's this standard criticism that comes from the left. And one of the reasons, and there's a number of reasons, is really resonating throughout Europe, is they increasingly are pretty much just told that as white people, it's their place to be on the receiving end of this. And this recent report coming out acknowledging that 250,000 white girls and some women were not just systemically raped by Muslim men, most of which were from Pakistan, but the government covered it up. The people who were supposed to protect them, covering for the rapists. So when a movie comes along and it portrays an individual, and I haven't seen the movie, I should note, but it's described as an American in Europe going to war against Muslim savagery and those who allow it. So those who were part of the cover-up, apparently, of the atrocities that are portrayed in the film. One part, it is exposing a problem that they're not supposed to be talking about. And at the same time, it portrays someone doing what their leadership should have been doing, and that is protecting them. That is engaging for people. I've shared the story before, but I'm going to share it again because it's applicable here. A year prior to Putin's initial invasion of Ukraine by way of the Crimean Peninsula during the Obama administration, I spent some time in Ukraine. And one of the things that I noted in terms of celebrity, there was only one celebrity that I recognized. I saw, particularly in Kiev, that they would have on keychains and T-shirts, and it was Hugh Laurie. Hugh Laurie, who's an English actor that is known in the States as House, the show House. And I thought, well, he's not the most obscure actor, but, and I think, where's the Tom Cruise? Where's the Brad Pitt? Where are the more high-profile, universal celebrities? Why is Hugh Laurie all over everything? And so I asked that question, like, what's the deal with Hugh Laurie? And it was explained to me that, they have socialized medicine in Ukraine, which means it's absolutely horrendous. And because of socialized medicine, over time, increasingly, it created a system in which, nurses and doctors, they hated their jobs. They weren't actually allowed to practice medicine. Everything was just government mandated. So they essentially became bureaucrats, and that bled into the service, which, then it really created this conflict between the doctor and the patient, and patients couldn't get in to see doctors. And there was just this overwhelming sense that the medical professionals didn't even care about the patients. And here was a character that portrayed the exact opposite. That was Dr. House, that he was obsessed. Now, it seems like a bit of a contradiction because he had no bedside manner. He acted as if, he really didn't care about the person, but he cared about the mystery, solving it. And this was like a savior conceptually to the people of Ukraine culturally, in the context of their medical system. This is a guy that not only cares, but he's obsessed with figuring out, won't let it go. That's the opposite of what it's like for us. And so he became this cultural icon. He was somebody that they desperately wanted, that they desperately felt and recognized could exist, but for the system that prevented that sort of individual from existing. This is the same reason that human beings, particularly those that are culturally subjected to being told this is just the way it is, and not being protected by criminals, are really responding to citizen vigilante because they are seeing somebody that is doing what it is that the people who are supposed to be protecting them are supposed to be doing. Instead, they're subject to, one of the cases talked about in the previous segment, here a guy, a white British guy, gets attacked, stabbed by somebody that was imported into the country of a completely different culture. And because he simply says the word racism, they handcuff the stabbed individual dying. And he dies. He was the bad guy. That's what the people of Europe have been subjected to. It may not be as severe and extreme as what we're dealing with here in the United States, but it's the same frustration that so many of us have that, the law-abiding citizen is the one that gets the short end of the stick. You and I are expected to pay our taxes, to get driver's license, to, comply, to get license for businesses, to all these things. And if we step out of line or don't do it, we get punished. Meanwhile, we see criminals that get rewarded over and over again. We see people who aren't even part of this country come here illegally, and they're the ones, at least one political party, the Democrat Party, stands up and hold press conferences for. The citizen vigilante, the way that it will be portrayed if it continues to get traction as something that is dangerous because it's promoting violence. It's going to promote violence against the Muslim community because of the actions of just a few. But it isn't a desire to see vigilantism. It's a desire to see what vigilantism is filling in terms of the void, and that is justice. When people are drawn to a film like Citizen Vigilante, it isn't because they want vigilantism. They just want the system to work, so there's no need for vigilantism. And what we'll see, of course, this will in all likelihood feed itself, are the elites doubling down. And, once again, dismissing this as not really that big of a problem, and the bad guys are going to be the ones who are drawing attention to the truth. Before we take a quick break, can we also note the difference in reaction to this film about crimes committed by a culture that have a religious connotation versus the way that the elites have responded to films regarding the Catholic Church and the awards that they give? They don't only praise and worship the numerous films that have been created, either documentary style or historical fiction regarding abuses in the Catholic Church. They give awards to the film. Now, isn't that an interesting difference in the way that the elites treat those two particular situations? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. By the way, you can also go to KSGF.com and sign up to get lunch delivered to you at your workplace from Godfather's Pizza. That's at KSGF.com. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. If you missed the forecast for this week, it's going to be a hot one. We are looking at temps in the mid-90s and a heat advisory until Friday night. And it never fails. Whenever you need it most, your AC goes out. Now, if you woke up this morning and your house is stuffy, or maybe you get home from work this evening and maybe you just notice that your AC has quit, Foreman Mechanical is the company to call. Now, they offer residential and commercial HVAC services, and they have a 24/7 emergency service line if you ever need it. So if your AC fails this week, remember Foreman Mechanical for all of your HVAC needs. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Hakeem Jeffries' press conference yesterday. Now, he is one of the many Democrat leaders that is facing, or is targeted, rather, by the Democrat Socialists of America. And there's still a lot of denial going on here with these folks. They don't realize that they are currently the target. Chuck Schumer is the target. Hakeem Jeffries is the target. The socialists, the communists, the anti-Semites, they are taking over the Democrat Party. And the Democrat Party is letting them by being in denial. Just pretend, oh, no, we're just, big tent, big tent, big tent. You know who doesn't want it to be a big tent? The people that you have let into the big tent. He was asked, I think specifically, well, there's a number of other races that they're looking at. And one of the races is in Colorado. And I believe this is the specific race that he was being asked about. But the whole concept here are these left-wing socialist communists that are taking over the Democrat Party.
And you said Stevie Wonder was saying to get Steve, do you believe she's capable of winning? And what does it say that her race is very close in terms of, this challenge against incumbents by Democratic Socialists?
It's a close race, and we'll see what happens. Ultimately, it'll be in the hands of the people of Denver. But the reality is we have an unsettled electoral environment, which is going to be the case when Donald Trump is president.
It's not Donald Trump they're after. Not now. Now, they're after all of us because they want complete and total control. They're control freaks. Again, toxic relationship. I think sometimes we try too hard to academically appreciate or understand why it is that these people do what they want to do. Sometimes people are just psychos. Sometimes people are angry control freaks. And it's as simple as that. When you listen to some of the rhetoric of these people, none of it's joy. None of it is about happiness. None of it is centered in anything that is positive or good. It's all hate-filled. It's all about getting someone and punishing someone and making someone pay. It's all about highlighting a category of people and convincing another category of people of how evil these individuals are. There really isn't anything profound about these people. They're just angry, hateful people, and they're not angry for any legitimate reason. And incidentally, they're not these profoundly intelligent people with groundbreaking ideas. This is a bit of a misportrayal, and it's done on purpose. And I think some of it, they buy into their own rhetoric. They think that they're just brilliant and smart, that they've come up with some ideas that have never been come up with before, and that is that, well, we should just be in charge and decide how things should run. That's the oldest idea ever. That was pretty much the idea for the vast majority of existence on this planet. That's one area where we were a bit different. That's one of the brilliant things 250 years ago that launched this country. It was the idea that, you know what, that way's been tried a lot. And we don't want to, it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's so one-dimensional. It's so stale. This idea of socialism and communism, and this is, I believe, one of the reasons they have to portray it as if it's something cool and new. No, it's not. This is the oldest idea in existence. People who want to tell you how to live your life. That concept has been around since humanity's been around. You know, as we get into the Independence Day celebrations and the 250 years, I mean, that's the unique, profound, radical idea It's this upside down world of the people who want to portray themselves as so edgy and so cool and so fresh, yet they act as if their ideas are the cool, edgy, fresh ones when they're the oldest ideas in existence of humanity. It's the United States of America. The idea behind that, the foundation behind that was different, unique, edgy, revolutionary, and it's really sort of an odd thing to watch them convince themselves and convince others and all of these ignorant masses, and they are the younger people that don't know history, that have no idea that this isn't the same thing that's been done over and over and over again by people with absolutely no intellectual curiosity, no ability to have intellectual, just that curiosity and that ability to think beyond the bruteness of, well, I should just be in charge and make the decisions for everyone. That's so basic and so one-dimensional, which is why no one ever really expects, in terms of their supporters, an explanation of exactly how that's going to work, because there's no depth to it, no intellectualism to it, no humanity to it. Just the brute, basic force of, well, I'm going to be in charge and then I'll just tell you how to live your life. But back round to the point here, Hakeem Jeffries. Oh, this is just because Donald Trump. This is going to continue to happen because of Donald Trump. Oh, you think Donald Trump, when he's no longer president, that the Democrat Socialists of America are suddenly going to stop trying to win Democrat seats? That's what you really believe? Good luck with that. See how that goes. Hey everyone, it's Sarah Myers.
Hey everyone, that's me, Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. Now, I started my little hobby farm about 4 years ago now, and when you're new to something like that, it really does take a lot of education, a lot of research, and a lot of advice from others. And thankfully, we got plenty of that from our good friends over at Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. Whether it was buying our first animals or just, learning what to look for or just asking any questions that we had, they were always very willing to help us out. And the best part is they never made us feel like we were asking a dumb question. And that really does mean a lot when you're just getting started in a new industry. Now, if you've ever thought about getting into livestock, or you're looking for a trusted place to buy or sell, stop by Springfield Livestock. To check out other upcoming sales, visit their website, springfieldlivestock.com, and of course, you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Republican Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania and Senator John Fetterman, Democrat, Pennsylvania, teaming up alongside U.S. Secretary of Ag Brooke Rollins to represent Pennsylvania at the Great American State Fair. This after Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro failed to find businesses to sponsor the booth. The representation will be fully privately funded with no taxpayer dollars. Now, Shapiro is he's either really, really, really bad at his job or he's a liar. You're telling me the governor could not find a sponsor so Pennsylvania could be represented at the Great American State Fair on the 250th birthday of this country? Now, of course he could. He did not want to. And let me tell you why. And this is what a sad state the Democrat Party's in. Despite the fact that his plan is to present himself as a non-crazy Democrat, he still knows he cannot be seen as pro-American. He cannot be seen amongst the Democrat base as celebrating America, as celebrating Independence Day. He cannot be seen surrounded by individuals waving American flags, talking about how great this country is. And this is a moderate Democrat. This is what I'm talking about when I say that this party is done for in the form that it's been known. When you have a moderate like Shapiro, who is hiding his love for America in order to get a nomination, that tells you what you need to know about that party today. Springfield's Talk 1041, Hour 3. Welcome. My name is Nick Reed. The 2027 Great Escape, open for business, sponsored by HVAC Masters. If you want to join us as we do the show abroad, it will be Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, from the Rio Palace, Macau. Incredible resort. It's the premier level that is adults only, but we have access to the surrounding Rio Palace resorts, though the surrounding resorts don't have access to us. So it's kind of a plus. That way we don't get overcrowded, but we can also then explore and hit restaurants or clubs or the casinos at some of the other resorts. So it's kind of like getting several different in one. 7 days for a junior suite. It's just under $2,000 per person. That covers airfare. That covers all of your food and beverages, alcohol, non-alcohol, your tipping, your taxes. The trip from the airport to the resort itself, and it's just a fantastic time. We'll do the show there. Anyone who goes along, you can be on the show if you want. You don't have to attend the show. Totally whatever you want to do. But I recommend that if it's something you've thought about, just don't wait. Reservations, $250 a person. Final payment is not due until November, so you have some time. All the detail at ksgf.com. We're going to talk about Amendment 5 with one of the architects, Bishop Davidson, coming up here in just a moment. If you have any questions about it, text them in to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93 and heat index values as high as 101. Tonight clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 93.
many of you have reached out, and two amendments in particular, 4 and 5, wanted more information about those. And yesterday, as well as today, mentioning that there is, I guess, a Q&A informational event taking place at the Golden Corral in Branson, noon today, and then 6 o'clock tonight at Flat Creek in Republic. And one of those individuals, who's an architect of Amendment 5, is in studio with us, Bishop Davidson. You were actually in Joplin last night, so you've been really touring around on this.
Oh, yeah. We had, I did 8 events last week, from Moberly to Hannibal to St. Louis to Lebanon to Licking and everything in between. And so, it's just, I don't know. This is an issue that, frankly, I'm pretty sure in high school I was asked how I would change the Constitution, and I said repeal the 16th and 17th. So, literally, income taxes and eliminating them has been on my mind from a more of a theoretical perspective since I've been a thinking person at all. And so it's a neat opportunity. And when you get those opportunities, you're willing to drive really far to make it work.
One of the frustrations that I have is that, let me back this up. I don't believe anyone should support any sort of effort of legislation simply based off of the people that are supporting it. But I do think that can tell you some things. It can give you hints. I think you should still understand what it is that you're working towards. And I know the people who are supportive of this effort and who have been instrumentally involved, and they are sometimes the lone voices in fiscal responsibility, in having a tax burden that is either lessened or more fair. And so when I see that, there are accusations made that this is all about raising taxes, I'm like, okay, now, again, I'm all about really getting into learning about the actual facts of any sort of effort. But do you think just collectively the people who have long been fighting for lower taxes more just suddenly one day decided, let's conspire to raise tax? I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. And I get frustrated at people that will believe random PACs or random people cutting and pasting those accusations on the internet, as opposed to if you go in blind, and you at least know the people that are behind it, like yourself and Aaron Chappell and some of these others that are for fiscal responsibility, but you still will believe people you don't know on the internet that this is actually going to raise taxes. I just, like, that doesn't compute to me, and I find it frustrating. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, you and I have talked.
And that doesn't mean that somebody by default has to agree with it.
No. Well, you and I have talked about this, and this campaign is interesting. And I don't know how much time you have me or I have you or whatever, but, like, we'll get to Amendment 5, but you're talking about something that has sort of emerged for me and become really prevalent and drawn my attention. And that's this blind distrust. And I always say blind distrust, or I've started saying, I should say, blind distrust is blind trust.
It's true. It's the same.
They're literally the same thing. And as much as we use distrust as sort of like a conservative tenet almost, I think really underlying that was an understanding of power and human nature, and it was a general skepticism which asks hard questions, seeks the truth, and holds people accountable, which is really good. I think largely COVID sort of destroyed that, I'll be honest, because there was conspiring to actually, like, do real damage to people. I mean, it's really horrific, actually. And I know that some people realize how horrific it was. I think that we'll only realize that more, 50 years from now, through the clarity of looking back. I think will universally sort of regard COVID as like this absolute atrocity. But one of the things that's happened in the short term is it is completely destroyed trust in institutions. So I don't even completely blame the people on
No,
this.
I don't.
Like I get where they're coming from, but
Right.
now what we do have though is a new responsibility that we didn't have before, and it's kind of an interesting one, and it feels strange, which is we need to do our best to cultivate trust in one another, in our institutions, and that doesn't mean we don't hold each other accountable. That's very important. Actually, accountability is maybe the most important part of cultivating trust. Right? I'm
Well,
saying,
sure it
it's
is.
saying, what do you want to do, and are you doing the
Yeah.
thing that you said that you were going to do?
Well, let me tell you just part of start this off with the broad strokes, and I don't know. I guess it sets
Yeah,
the
sorry,
temperature.
this isn't-
Well,
yeah.
no, but it sets the temperature because I do think this is relevant to this whole discussion, and I'd like to think that maybe some of what I'm about to say will perhaps I don't want to say change people's mind, but change their approach. You know what I mean? Like, so for example, as you noted, the complete lack of trust that was created because of COVID and some other areas in which the automatic distrust. And the problem with that is that there are people that are in there fighting. Like we say we want people to get in there and fight hard, but then when they do, oftentimes they get met with people whose automatic response is to just dismiss them as being dishonest, and it makes one potentially say, what's the point? What is the point in going in there and trying to fight and really doing what it is that some of these people want done if the auto response is going to be distrust? Like then there is no point. Why even try?
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to find the words for this because I haven't really talked about it that much yet. It's not even that the auto response of distrust is the problem. It's that because I tell folks I'm not asking for your trust, but I would like to earn it.
Right.
And
just listen.
It's just it's a kind of a complicated like. Listen, I actually do want you to be skeptical of the government. That's good. I appreciate it. That's why it's hard to ruffle my feathers. But at the same time, let's just talk through it. Let's just have a conversation. I'm willing to kind of show you exactly what the story is behind that set of words and how it happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to show you where I felt like compromises were made. And you can go, well, that wasn't worth it, Bishop. You made the wrong choice. And that's
Okay.
fair. You know,
All
like
right,
that
yeah.
happens too. I get it. We're not going to agree on everything. But yeah, I mean.
But the thing is, the mindset people have that, well, your motivations are nefarious. That's what I think people need to break away from that as a default. Because as you noted.
That's fair.
Yeah, because there can be a person who's an elected official that you disagree with, but it doesn't mean the reason they're doing the thing is some sort of nefarious. Maybe they just have a different approach.
Yeah. Okay, so that is a good point. When I say a baseline distrust or a baseline skepticism, what I really mean is like the government's incentive structure is really bad, right?
100%.
And power has
Right.
a corrupting force. That's also true, right? And the democratic process. I mean, like Plato says, it's not the best, it's not the worst, right? Like it's got some real drawbacks. So
Well, and Reagan had the trust but verify, and maybe in this day and age it should be distrust but verify.
yeah,
I mean, really.
yeah, no,
We can
fair.
shift. We can shift.
But
from
let's add the
Yeah.
verify.
Now, I want to say one other thing, and this is, again, to sort of set the stage. When it comes to one of the biggest problems I have with the existence of an income tax is, and I'm going to read a text, and this isn't a bad text. It's not a text coming from a bad person by any stretch of the imagination, but it illustrates one of the reasons that I think that income tax is inherently bad. And so the text, which is a very, very, very common text, one that I hear, and I'm sure you hear quite often, and it notes, as a senior and a veteran, my Social Security and military pension are not taxed. Why should I vote to pay higher sales tax when I'm not paying income tax. I'm a conservative and understand the principles of Amendment 5, but struggling to find how it benefits me. This is part of the reason some like an income tax, because it does exactly this. Any tax that can be applied to only a segment of the population, they know that they can pit other people against them, particularly if it comes to trying to alleviate some of that. And so that's why I believe the most fair tax system is one in which everyone benefits, or everyone is burdened equally. Everyone is equally responsible, because otherwise this is the sort of thing that happens. They pit us against one another. And so it becomes a situation in which good citizens, good law-abiding, hardworking citizens that are veterans are all of a sudden like, well, wait a minute, that's your problem. Why should it be my problem? And I think some of that's done by design.
Yeah, I think it's no coincidence the government has grown so much when we introduced an untransparent tax system,
Yeah.
but also a tax system that made us fight each other.
Right, exactly.
Instead of uniting taxpayers against tax spenders, right?
Yeah.
That should be the tension, is between the government and taxpayers.
And that's what has happened here.
Yeah.
The tension is between those who are carrying some of the burden versus those who are told you don't have to, as opposed to the people who are spending the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's very sleight of hand.
and
Very clever.
The challenge in that situation, and I'm trying to watch the clock. I don't know how much
No,
time we
we
have in
got
this segment.
we can go till 9.
But the challenge in that situation is we exempted Social Security income 4 years ago. We froze property tax for seniors. We exempted public pensions a couple years ago. We eliminated capital gains. In my experience, those are the individuals who have seen the benefits of eliminating income tax. They're the ones who know that those benefits exist firsthand. And those are the people who want to see it for their kids and their grandkids and everyone else around them. And the beauty is that pretty quickly you unleash economic activity and growth, which does genuinely benefit.
Well, and
benefit us
that's
all.
another thing that I oftentimes point to is we fully recognize, everyone seems to agree, the states with no income tax do the best. And then others will say, well, yeah, but they have increased taxes over here and there. Well, that may be, but they still do better than us. That tells us something. Now, Bishop Davidson's with us. I want to take a break and then want to talk about a number of things, including people who are concerned that this means that we are going to see a massive spike in sales tax. Because that's the big concern people have, that right now, I go buy a hamburger that's $4, it's suddenly going to cost $6 because of this alternate way of collecting tax revenue. So that with Bishop Davidson and more coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Bishop Davidson, architect of Amendment 5, in studio with us. All right, one of the big concerns, well, one of the broader questions, and you can answer that as well, is, hey, whatever the shift to sales tax, I'm not paying that now. Why should I have to? But the other one is the concern that it's going to be a really significant increase. And so a $4 hamburger is going to be $6 now. What do you say to those folks and those concerns?
Yeah. So you can do the math. It's not the easiest thing to do. I'll be honest. You got to kind of do your research and get all this data sets and things like that. But basically, the constitutional amendment has very clear guardrails in place, and one of the most important guardrails is that it has to be revenue neutral or less. So it can't gain any dollars, right? The government can't grow. It can't gain new money that it wouldn't have already had. It can be revenue neutral. It can generate the same amount that income taxes currently generate, but it can't get a new dollar. That gives you a really firm number that you can sort of reverse engineer and go, okay, how's the math work? And it's a big equation. The 4 variables are timeline, when do you eliminate your income tax, its base, what are the things eligible for a tax, its rate, and its revenue picture. Do we lose revenue? Are we revenue neutral? We can't gain revenue, remember. And here's the thing. If, as an example, this is kind of more of a baseline, if you will. If you wanted to eliminate income taxes in 2032, so it's 0% then, you want to be completely revenue neutral, and you have as broad of a base for your sales tax as you can have. There are federal exemptions, half of health care, food, some food, what else is airfare, and we have some other, like gasoline and nonprofit, some baseline exemptions, but a broad base otherwise. You're looking at currently at a state sales tax rate of 4.225. To do the things I just said, you would need a sales tax rate of 4.97. So 0.75-ish.
Now, so that's on a state level. People then they're like, well, what about my local city sales tax and the county? And
yeah, so if we were to expand the sales tax base, then we're fundamentally expanding the local sales tax base, and local subdivisions that levy sales taxes, like counties or cities, have to use that extra money that they get from that base expansion to roll back their rates as well. Either their property tax rates or their sales tax rates.
So when you talk about when you're looking at the math and the state sales tax going from 4.25 to
4.225 to 4.97. That's kind of the base. I think it's between 5 and 6.
Okay.
Because then if you exempt something more, well, you're either pushing out your timeline, you're pushing up your rate, or you're taking a revenue hit.
But with that, though, that increase of whatever the math is, less than 1%, that satisfies the revenue neutral. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when then people say or have concerns, well, okay, but what about local sales tax? Because of the way this is set up, it does not allow for additional revenues beyond what's already coming in. So if they did that, it would have to be decreased elsewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay.
So there's I mean, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. You got to go and look at each political subdivision to try and get a clearer understanding of what would happen in that subdivision. But there's like a very real possibility that your state rate could rise 0.75 to 2%. And then your local rate could decrease as a whole, all those subdivisions. And it very likely could become a wash. Right now, your average aggregate rate across the state is 8.44%. And so where will we land at the end of that? We might land right around 8.44%, but just have no income tax to boot. And so that's kind of the remarkable thing. And that's because we have like 200 plus exemptions in our sales tax code. And you eliminate those loopholes, you close those loopholes, and you're able to do some pretty amazing things on tax reform.
We are talking with Bishop Davidson. We're going to get a traffic update. One of the frustrations I have, and I hesitate to say this because I do think people need to ask questions and have a full understanding of it, but then there are times I feel as if sometimes the approach is the never-ending question to where I say it's almost like we can't ever improve if particularly, I mean, the getting rid of the income tax, because you can always, and that's with any big decision. What about this? What about that? What about this? And if you're looking for an answer that is going to make you feel completely safe without any sort of questions left, then you're going to be stagnant. And I don't think we ever can improve in that sort of environment. And the reason I hesitate to say that is because I don't want people to think that we shouldn't ask questions. We should. But, at some point, I don't know. It's a gray area between those that are, and everyone knows, I guess, in their own mind, that are really truly trying to figure it out versus they're just throwing up obstacles. I guess we got Bishop Davidson with us here as we continue on, and please again feel free, though there are a number of them already. We'll get to the ones we can in terms of text messages. 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area until 9 p.m. Friday. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 93 and heat index values as high as 101. Tonight clear with a low around 73. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 92 and heat index values as high as 102. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 93.
Bishop Davidson with us. We are talking about Amendment 5, and Bishop suggested rapid fire text messages that have come in, and so we shall do that. It's the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Y'all sidestep the fact that eliminating income tax will massively increase sales tax, harming disabled veterans. You mentioned it, but didn't address it.
Yeah, so the rate we're looking at is a total state sales tax rate of 4.97%. That's your baseline. I think actually it lands between 5 and 6%. That's not a massive increase. It's 4.225 currently. And the big value is now you stop penalizing economic growth and economic productivity. If you tax something, you get less of it. Tax cigarettes, you get less cigarette smoking, right? Tax alcohol, you get less drinking. You tax death. They did a study, and that state got less death. Now people just went to other states to die,
Right.
but that state got less death. You tax productivity, you get less productivity, and you get less economic growth because of it. Less economic growth means stagnated wages and increased prices in goods and services. So
But, on the math, it's fair to say then for $100, you would be talking about state income tax that would go from $4.50 to
$5 to $6.
$5 to $6 on $100. And I not to downplay any sort of increase, but I don't think a lot of people consider that to be massive.
Well, and here's the big picture, right? The total tax burden is actually reduced.
Right.
Very importantly. Why? Because now you're making sure to capture 43 million non-Missourians' revenue. And the Income Tax Administration costs over $1 billion of hiring people at DOR and actually administering it. And so those savings get to go right back to the people as well. And then not to mention, as you create more economic productivity, you broaden that base of where revenue's generated, and that allows the burden to proportionately be less as well.
And some of those numbers, I think I've heard you mention, what is it, 2.8 million carry the burden right now, and it would instead be diluted down to how many million?
46 million.
46 million.
Yeah.
Is there anything, another question in the bill about elevating taxes on travelers, as an example, hotels?
There's nothing specific to transient taxes, if that's the question. But consumption taxes generally are things which hit non-Missourians more evenly than income taxes. And that's because travelers don't pay any income taxes whatsoever, right, necessarily. But if you have a consumption tax, a sales tax, it makes sure that those who are passing through or into the state are contributing to the state revenues.
Some of these questions may overlap just a bit, but
That's
I
okay.
want to go ahead because sometimes they come from a different perspective. And this essentially is asking, well, what's the point in all this? If it's revenue neutral, it's just
Yeah.
like taking money out of here instead. It seems like a lot of confusion and what's the point?
No, that's a great question. I would maintain that the conservative position is that income taxes suck. Right? All taxes suck. Income taxes suck worse. And I think that's what oftentimes is missed, is that not all taxes are created equal. They have different effects, they have different impacts, and we should consider that. And so even if it is revenue neutral, which I think the government should be reduced, so revenue neutral is the worst case scenario, is the way I would put it. But even if it were just perfectly revenue neutral, I'm here to say that income taxes invade people's privacy, wild invasion of privacy, that they have to know our names, our bank accounts, how much money we make. I'm here to say that it's untransparent, right? No one knows how much the government costs because it taxes every good and service, and that cost is actually passed on to consumer in the form of price rising. It's not very fair. It's not very voluntary. You have less choice over making a living than you do over what you consume, right? And it's also destructive to the economy. And that's maybe one of the big things that we always overlook when we talk about limited government. Limited government means limiting government from encroaching on our individual liberties, but it also means limiting government from encroaching on our economic freedom. And so even if it were revenue neutral, perfectly, which is, like I said, possible and the worst case scenario, in my opinion, this conservative's opinion, you're still now taking a very bad tax that's very destructive and invasive of privacy, and instead utilizing a tax which is more fair, encourages economic growth, and like you'd said, to your point, unites taxpayers against tax spenders instead of dividing them.
It should not go unnoticed that big spend, huge government, liberal, progressive Democrats are opposed to this. They do not like this idea.
And it shouldn't go unaddressed that when we introduced income taxes, that's when government grew. Everything blew up when you did that. So,
how will rolled back local property taxes affect local school districts?
So it rolls back property taxes if the political subdivision collects sales taxes, because that's when an expanded sales tax base would actually increase their revenue so that they have to roll back that rate. School districts don't have sales taxes, And so there is no rolling back on school districts. One. Two, it's completely revenue neutral at a local level, so it has actually no effect on the local revenue picture. And then three, we kind of belt and suspended the situation by putting in the bill, it's in subsection 3 of section 26, and it says explicitly that local adjustments cannot affect school funding.
Another question. So a family earning $60K per year will pay in total sales tax as income tax versus sales tax. I think they're asking, I don't know if maybe it's speak to text there, but I think what they're wanting to know is if a person makes $60K a year, will they be paying the same amount in taxes?
Yeah, so there was a report came out from the Council of Economic Advisors in January. Missouri-specific numbers looked at this sort of plan. It assumed more of an aggressive sales tax of 6%, and it said after all adjustments are made and accounted for, the average wage earner stands to benefit $2,704 to $2,872 new dollars in their pocket each year. That's after all adjustments.
What keeps future congressmen from raising it without approval from the people?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Hancock Amendment, Section 18E of Article 10, which passed in 1996, added to Hancock, actually. What it says is that the government can't generate revenue without a vote of the people. It can do revenue-neutral proposals, but it can't generate revenue without a vote of the people. Amendment 5 doesn't change that. It has to be revenue-neutral or less. And so if the legislature wants to propose a revenue-generating proposal where we just outright raise the tax burden, it still has to go to a vote of the people. This doesn't create that pathway. It completely complies with the Hancock Amendment.
Bishop Davidson with us answering questions about Amendment 5. Again, in Branson, there will also be a sort of an informative Q&A event at noon at the Golden Corral, and then 6 o'clock in Republic this evening at Flat Creek. Going to take a quick break and then a couple other questions that you have sent in on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Ozarks Elder Law, so many of the questions that we are talking about here regarding Amendment 5, it's financial. People worried, particularly if you're of retirement age, about that planning and what you've planned for your retirement, and whether it is something you plan on passing along to family, or maybe you're young and starting out, or future nursing home care. So much of that can depend on what you plan for ahead of time, and have legal documents signed showing that you have done the planning. And that's where Ozarks Elder Law comes in. 5 ways in Missouri to pay for a nursing home, though that doesn't mean that that's going to apply to you when the moment comes. They slowly drop off as time goes on. You got to plan ahead of time. Power of attorney. Do you need a trust versus a will? They're not all the same. Serve very different purposes. This is where you get that consultation, and as opposed to a lot of consultations where you get billed per hour, it is a courtesy. That's a public service that Ozarks Elder Law provides to you, so you know what it is, customized for your specific situation, what you need to do to be protected, and how much it will cost. 10 area locations. Set up your free consultation today, ozarkselderlaw.com. All right, another question for Bishop. This says, I work in Texas but live in Missouri. My coworkers don't pay state income tax, but they pay about 10 times what I do for property taxes. Some pay $30,000 to $40,000 for their property taxes. The state of Missouri will have to make up the difference somewhere. Most likely it will be where Texas does property taxes. I can't afford the bump in taxes going into retirement, so I'm not in favor of Amendment 5.
Section 8 of Article 10 prohibits the state from levying a personal property tax or a real property tax. We're already not allowed to do that. We already don't do that. And it's about doing the math specifically. You're right, the revenue has to be made up. And I'm here to tell you between 4.97 and 6% of a total sales tax rate is sufficient to actually make it up.
And I think people just have a hard time comprehending that. They think, well, that math doesn't math, as they say now. But it does, because, again, you're talking about a tax burden that is currently carried by 2.8 million that is going to be
carried by 46 million.
46 million. And, so almost 10 times as many people.
And we currently tax 31% or something of the economy. And so sales taxes being levied on 31% is going to be a very limiting factor. If you were to expand that base to, say, 60%, you now change your outlook and your picture quite a bit as well. But be very, very clear, real property, personal property, is not currently taxed by this state and cannot be taxed by the state, except for the blind pension fund, like a really tiny 0.03%. But yeah, it literally can't be taxed by the state, and that's not a consideration whatsoever. It is a good concern, though. I appreciate that question.
It's totally legit. Do you really think the state will get rid of employees that manage the income tax?
That's actually a hysterical question. That's a great question.
Yeah,
just like
legit.
Yeah, like shuffle them around. Like hey. Fair point. I would hope so. Here's the thing. We're in kind of a budget challenge, budget crunch right now at the state of Missouri, and so people are trying to look for innovative ways to address it nonetheless. Yes, I don't know. It's a good question.
No, it's
I'm optimistic that yes, we would see and realize like it would be absolutely insane to retain $1 billion of expenses that we no longer need to. Even the government hopefully isn't that inefficient and that ineffective. Now maybe instead of $1 billion, we cut 800 million or something like that. Granted, but yeah, that's a very
another legit question.
Yeah, that's very prudent, legit question. I like that question quite a bit actually. But I'm just laying out numbers to show exactly what these things cost and what it could cost.
Another asking, what's your definition of revenue neutral? Is it a flat dollar amount or percentage of increase?
It's a flat dollar amount. So what it says in subdivision 2 of subsection 2 of section 26. I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I'm trying to cite my sources, is that it has to have offsets of the income tax that generate the same amount of revenue or greater, which is your revenue equal or less, has to have offsets that are equal to or greater in the same piece of legislation. And so that's a dollar amount.
Let's see. Sorry if you've already addressed this. I don't think we have. I just tuned in. But on the income tax, is it just simple income or does it include capital gains?
Capital gains currently are exempted from income tax. We passed that last year. What I will say is all the things we've done on income tax, Social Security income, public pensions, capital gains, with this amendment now get constitutionally codified, so that we know that they'll stay away and they can't be added later in the future. But broadly speaking, yes, it does include capital gains. A little bit more detail, that's currently exempted statutorily, but this would codify its elimination constitutionally.
Groceries, will they be taxed?
I don't think that they will be taxed. Currently, the state does not tax groceries for its general revenue fund. And groceries has been a hot topic of necessities that we'd like to see exempted. I think there will be a range of necessities that are exempted from any sales tax base. A lot of folks ask me, well, why didn't you put that in the constitutional amendment? Someone asked me that last night. Really, really easy answer. The Constitution is a framework, and it's something that you really want to think 50 years, 100 years down the line. You don't want to kind of hamstring the people of Missouri. And definitions really shift and change over time. Statutory language allows you to sort of adapt to those changes, whereas if you put too many words in the Constitution, it can really bite you. And marijuana has done this, right? I mean, the legislature didn't put it there.
It didn't take long.
But yeah, it really turned into quite a problem because we tried to put the statute into the Constitution, basically. Not we, I mean the people of Missouri, the initiative petition process.
You're part of us.
Yeah.
Bishop Davidson with us. Another quick break, and then final few questions and final thoughts from Bishop Davidson on Amendment 5. I'm Nick Reed. Bishop Davidson with us, architect of Amendment 5 and Branson today, Golden Corral, noon, a informational event where people can ask town hall. People can ask questions. It's not like a rally, but it's I've been encouraging people who are skeptical to show up for that,
love that.
Or the Republic Flat Creek location coming up 6 this afternoon. And then again, ask this one because I know some people tune in late and texting in regarding seniors. How does this help seniors? Who don't work?
No. So seniors who don't work are the ones who know the benefits of income tax. They're the ones who want to see us eliminate income tax for their kids and their grandkids. They know those benefits because we've eliminated their taxes over the last 4 years. Our priority has been seniors, and now we're trying to make a priority of the rest of the state.
Will you remind us of those?
Yeah, so we eliminated Social Security income taxes. We eliminated capital gains taxes, which is disproportionately seniors. We eliminated we eliminated taxes on public pensions, and then we also did a senior property tax freeze.
And I think that was a big one. And so I don't think it's wrong for non-seniors to say, you got some pretty good breaks there, overall seniors that the rest of us haven't. And so maybe it wouldn't hurt for those of us that work to also get a similar sort of break. I don't think that's an unfair position for some people to take.
But I think the bigger picture is, I always say, what do you think helps a senior most financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically? And it's having their kids and grandkids here in the state of Missouri. And right now, our average age is going up because economic opportunities are not here in this state, and young people are having to leave the state, and they're having to leave those who are aging in their life behind, and that is not good from a state perspective, right, your revenues start to get really volatile
Right.
and janky,
That's
and you
true.
stop being able to provide consistent
Right.
services. It's not good from a communal aspect, right? In that the usually the people who actually look after us are those who are younger than us and
Mhm.
love us in our lives, right? And that's usually what occurs.
That's a good,
But I would say
about 20
also,
seconds.
I would say also, seniors are already paying income taxes on every good and service they consume, every single one. Eliminating that, right, and creating a more transparent tax system that encourages economic growth stands to benefit them economically as they engage in the marketplace.
All right. Well, hopefully, again, that doesn't necessarily mean everyone's mind had to be changed, but some people got some answers they didn't have before and learned something. Bishop Davidson, thank you. Appreciate it, your time, and hope that it is fruitful in Branson and Republic this evening. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.